The first thing we'll do is we'll start with something easy. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself, your musical journey to this point, and maybe some influences, both musical and non-musical, in your life?
Yeah, okay. I'm Sydney. I'm a senior in high school, so I'm 18. And I've been a classical musician pretty much all my life. I started playing piano at age 4, and I took up composition at age 11 because I've always enjoyed writing as a child, so writing fiction. And I feel like it was a really kind of organic merging of two passions of mine, writing and music. And I found that I could better express myself through music than I could through words, which is why started composition. And it's really hard to pick an influence because I think everything sort of makes its way into my music in some form or another. So, in addition to all of the great composers that I've studied, Bach, Mozart, Beethoven, the classics, I think works of literature, movies, people I talk to, um, things going on in the world, they all inspire my music in some way or another.
That's really cool. So going off of that, this is kind of jumping around, but I bet the quarantine has made it a little hard for you, considering that all these things about life find themselves in your music, and we've been pretty limited on what we're able to do in the past year. How has that affected you both as a person and as a composer?
Yeah, I think it took me a good month or so to get over the shock of everything happening all at once. I was supposed to have two pretty big premieres back in spring that were canceled pretty much last minute because of the pandemic. And I think for the first few months, it was really, really hard to write because my biggest sources of inspiration do come from kind of going around meeting people and experiencing new things. So I think, but after a few months, I feel like I kind of started to learn how to turn some of the emotions I was experiencing, frustration, loneliness, some sadness, disappointment, all of that into music. And I feel like I sort of alternated between writing extremely emotional music as kind of like an outlet and then writing really cheerful music to kind of lift my spirits and also lift other people's spirits as well. But I think overall this past year I've grown as an artist through this experience and also as a person. So yeah, in some ways I am grateful for everything that I've learned.
All right, and thinking, what are some of your favorite musical experiences, like concerts, that maybe you remind yourself throughout the pandemic to help you give yourself motivation, or just just things that really stand out as a really resonant musical moment?
Yeah, so I'm part of the Los Angeles Philharmonic's Composer Fellowship Program, which is a community program for high school age composers run by the Los Angeles Philharmonic. And that program has really changed my life in a lot of ways. It's given me a community of composers that I get to meet with pretty much every weekend, and we've become really fast friends. And I think because composing, you do a lot of it in isolation to start with, to have already community at your fingertips really really it was a big source of inspiration for me and also motivation. And a lot of those people I met, both mentors and peers, like their friendship and their, I guess, their kindness and supportiveness has been really helpful in getting through this experience. And a really specific experience that I felt like really changed my life. 2 summers ago, so summer of 2019, I attended a music festival in Italy, playing the piano, and it was in a pretty small town in the countryside, but the kind of intense musical atmosphere combined with the cultural experience made me realize, it really gave me a new perspective and made me curious about everything that's out there. And it also really made me sure that music was something that I wanted to do for the rest of my life. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's a really awesome experience. I can relate because I've also played in a random countryside in Italy once, and Italian
Was it the
people.
same? Was it the same?
I don't know. It was somewhere between. It's a really big region of Italy between
Hmm.
Rome and like Milan. So basically, somewhere in northern Italy. But it was for they're having a rehearsal dinner for a winery owner's daughter's wedding. But I
Yeah.
gotta say, Italian people are very appreciative.
Yeah. They're so welcoming and open. And like the sense of community was what really kind of sold the experience.
Oh yeah, definitely. I can definitely relate to that. Mike, Keaton, either you guys have a question? Try to think of one real quick, but
Um, I was just curious about your compositional process. If you could talk about the piece a little bit, and then maybe talk about how you went about writing it.
Yeah, so usually I start with some concept or idea. In my head, oftentimes it's very abstract. It might even just be something like, in this case, a name or a color or a place or just a motif. And once I have that down, I usually spend some time at the piano, kind of flesh it out a little bit and see where it can go, explore all the possibilities. And a lot of the time, it's just me sitting at my computer, just putting stuff on the paper, like sketches, kind of. Oftentimes, a lot of it I end up not using, but it's just kind of getting all of my ideas out and seeing how this works. So in this piece, when I started, I knew I wanted to explore kind of a neo-Baroque style because that's something I've always been a little bit careful of trying because I didn't think it'd be something I could pull off. But I decided to really push myself into trying it, and I'm happy with how it turned out.
Yeah, it's great. um,
Thank you.
and it's very, I think one of the things that we picked up on first whenever we started looking at it for score study and rehearsal was the kind of the stylized way that it was written in. And it's nice to hear that it was like neo-Baroque and fugue inspired because we were like,
Yeah.
this kind of sounds like a fugue a little bit. So that's awesome.
Hmm.
Um, and I'm also wondering, you said this was like your first time really experimenting in this style. What are some of the lessons that you learned from it, like compositionally?
Yeah, well, one of the challenges I think in writing this piece was that Bach is the master of fugue. No matter what anyone does, like you cannot reach that level. So I felt like I had to be careful in order to avoid sounding like a second-rate Bach. So I tried to. So in order to make it work, I feel like I had to. I took the core idea of a fugue and incorporated some stylistic elements of Bach while also I had to push myself to incorporate some of my own ideas and some of my own harmonies as well. So that was really fun to do as well.
So we'll have to word this question a little differently. But uh, as a composer, what are some things that you feel are necessary in a musical career that you might not discuss when you go to music school or in normal music programs?
Yeah, so I think that music making is very much a collaborative process, no matter what kind of musical field you go into. And I think a lot of when you learn music at school or through classes, they teach you a lot of technical and musical elements, but also a big aspect of a musical career is the human interaction. So you learn to network with people, you learn to work with people, share ideas, both kind of be a leader and be a good listener. And I think that's something that you have to learn on your own through experience. And it's not something that you can just sit in a classroom and have it taught because it's so unique to every person.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I think that's the first time we've gotten that answer, but it's very true. I think like no matter whether it's chamber music or even in like large ensembles, I think people fail to realize that everything we do is a collaboration.
Yeah,
And sometimes, I don't know, that changes the way people approach things, both musically and in their normal life.
yeah. I mean, I
Um,
think the collaborative process is one of the things I love most about music as well. So,
let's see. Um,
I have okay. Um, you had mentioned that you really liked writing fiction whenever you were younger. Um,
yeah,
and it might turn into like a five-part question, and I'm sorry. Um,
no worries.
I think the idea of synthesis between the music and the literature
Hmm.
is very appropriate. And I'm wondering if, like, in some ways you try to keep elements from writing like fiction, like maybe a narrative, or like maybe it turns into some kind of like journal of sorts.
Hmm.
I was wondering if you could speak about that a little.
I mean, I think in pretty much every one of my pieces, I try to have some sort of narration going on. Like in my head, at least, there's a storyline, and that's been the case ever since I started composing. Like a year after I started composing, I wrote my first symphony, and it was called Tales from the Sea, and each movement was inspired by, a different, either a mythological story related to the ocean, or a story I read online, or just an experience of my own. And that's, yeah, I think it comes naturally just that way. I think to not have like sort of plot plot in my piece is more of a challenge to me than having one at this point.
And do you have any pieces that you've written that kind of do that, that like you are thinking about deliberately not having some kind of narrative or plot?
Yeah, I wrote one. I wrote a piece for Sinfonietta. Actually, it was funny because it was at the very start of lockdown, and because I was struggling somewhat with a creative block at that point in time, I decided to just start with a very abstract idea, which was just, and it was the first time I think ever that I didn't have a plot. I just started with this pizzicato motif, and that just permeated throughout the entire piece, and I built the entire piece upon it. So if you ask me like the inspiration behind the piece, I can't really say I have much except maybe like the shock and confusion of lockdown, but that's pretty much it, I think. So to answer your question, yeah. And so far that's been the only piece that doesn't have it.
I'm also wondering, like, was the process different between writing a piece like that versus like Clara, for example?
Yeah, it was very different because Clara, I sketched out the whole thing. I did a rough sketch and then I kind of filled in the gaps later on. But the other piece, it was literally just paint or like measure by measure by measure because I didn't have like a cohesive kind of storyline through it, so I just had to really carefully construct each measure. I wasn't even sure where it was going, to be honest. It was something that just as I wrote, I got more ideas. So
do you have any projects that you're working on now or things that are coming up?
yeah, so I'm working on my first ever percussion quartet. Um, it's a project I'm doing as part of the Composer Fellowship program that I'm in, and is going to be performed by Sandbox Percussion in May. Well, performed or recorded depending on how the pandemic goes. So that's been really fun to work on.
That's really cool. They actually did a short residency here and played with our um, contemporary group, Music 21. I can't remember what piece, but they were really cool and
Yeah,
really
they're really
energetic.
good.
Yeah,
Hmm.
that's
Yeah, they
really
did a
awesome.
workshop with us at the program, teaching us how kind of going over percussion writing, and it was I learned a lot of things from them already.
That's super cool. So I guess we can move to some fun questions. Um,
Yay!
so, especially during this time, it's been interesting. What are some things that you do for fun in your spare time?
Honestly, it hasn't changed that much. It's just a lot of the things I do for fun I used to do with other people, and now I do it alone, I guess. So aside from music, I love reading and writing and art, and pretty much everything to do with art I'm interested in. And I also play tennis, and I play on my high school varsity team. And in addition to that, I mean, I love traveling, but that's not really an option right now. And I love cooking as well. And that's something I've picked up during lockdown. I used to be absolutely terrible at it. And I like to think I'm a little less terrible at it now. So,
What's your favorite thing to cook?
I think I'm naturally gravitated towards kind of Asian cuisine because I'm Chinese and I grew up eating my mom's cooking. And to this day, I don't think I've had anyone's cooking that's better than my mom's. So if one day I can cook as well as she is, I'll be very happy.
God, I'm angry. Mike stole the food question from me. But, and other questions that can be asked, such as, once this pandemic is over, once we can travel again, where would you like to go to? I'll put it in two ways. Where's a country you'd like to go to? And then maybe where's one of the 50 states you'd like to go to?
Well, right now we have a tentative trip already planned to Colorado in the summer, to Telluride. No idea if it's going to happen, but I'm gonna assume it's gonna happen until it doesn't. And out of the country, oh gosh, I have to say France, um, because I've I've been learning French for the past 4 or 5 years, and I think it'd be really cool to go there and immerse myself in the culture.
Yeah, France is definitely a
Yeah,
popular answer we've gotten. That
yeah, I imagine I'm
uh,
probably one of like 10 other people who said that, but
it's still a unique choice no matter what, either way. Especially, I mean, you have all that French experience learning the language. I can't imagine. Like, I've been learning Spanish, so I know I'd like to go to Spain or Mexico right now,
yeah.
or any other Spanish speaking country.
This always happens where like two of us have a question at the same time. Um,
Ask away.
Now, I'm wondering if I assume you're going to apply to universities and other things like that, and I'm wondering if like a study abroad semester or something in France is maybe on your horizon or something like that. I know a couple people that are doing it for like saxophone things, but there's like
Hmm.
funds available to get people over there. And I think it would be really fun.
Yeah, I mean, I've already finished my college application process. I'm mainly waiting to hear back from colleges. I mean, all the colleges that I applied to are in the US, but I think it would be fun to do like a study abroad, like summer program or something like that, just to kind of dip my feet into another culture for a while.
And if you don't mind us asking, do you have any top picks of where you want to go for university?
For university, right now I'm leaning towards UCLA, so close by here, but I don't know. I'm still waiting to hear back from I want to say most of my colleges. So I think over the next month, I'll be more clear on which colleges I want to go to.
All right, so this is a very serious question that requires a very serious answer. Um,
Go for it.
Cats or dogs?
This is a funny one actually because cats, I prefer cats over dogs, but I'm also allergic to cats. So owning a cat is not really an option. So it's kind of just like admiring them from afar. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Um,
There's always hairless cats. Those can
Yeah, I've thought about it, but my parents, my mom thinks they're a little scary looking. So
I would have to agree.
yeah, so I think I'm just gonna admire my neighbor's cats for the foreseeable future.
I guess this is like different, but what are some things that you are looking forward to as far as going to music school?
I think I'm looking forward to both kind of getting a career started in university and also just continuing to kind of further my musical education. And everyone says that college is very, very different from high school in that it's really like the first steps into like being independent and really getting to pursue your passion as a career. And that's something I'm really looking forward to and getting to meet new people as well. And I think I'll be pursuing like a musical degree. I'll be able to spend more time doing what I love than I've been able to in high school and having to balance all of the different classes.
I think you'll be very well set up. And I also want to, I don't know if, well, not necessarily echo, you already have a career. You're already doing it.
Well,
So
yeah,
you'll be
but
building on top of it and making more connections and everything, and that'll be great. I think
yeah,
you'll
I'm.
be really excited.
I mean, I've loved every step of the way so far. So I think I'm really looking forward to college and beyond.
Keaton? Um, okay, let's see here. I lost my question. This is a good one. What are some people, or who are some people that you look up to? And it doesn't have to be like musicians necessarily, but who are some
Mhm.
people that you feel like in your life you look up to and why?
I think definitely my all of my mentors, not only musically, but just all of them who've inspired me at school and elsewhere, and also my peers that I've met through the composer program, and my fellow musician friends, and also my friends at school who've inspired me in some way or another. And of course, I can't forget to mention my family because they've supported me in everything that I do, and they always believe in me. And without them, none of this would be possible. So I think, yeah, they're my role models for sure.
That's so great. Well, we really appreciate you taking the time to talk with us, and
Thank you for having me.
of course, we are so excited to play your piece, and look forward to hopefully working with you in the future as well.
Yeah, I'm so excited. Thank you so much for this opportunity too. I loved writing this piece and I
Of
can't wait for the
Great, we're so glad you wrote it.
It's
yeah,
very fun.
my pleasure.